Because one of the things that I am trying to do with this podcast and talking to as many people as I can is to expand the career opportunities for our math majors. And then there's very few other obvious choices for what one does with a mathematics degree, even though there are lots of opportunities.
It does feel like you're kind of in a box when you start out, and I do think it's a super enriching degree, and I do think there's a lot of opportunities out there for people that don't want to be a math teacher, and I hope that, like you said, that this gives a platform for people that, you know, that are in that situation and feel like they can broaden out.
Greetings. Welcome to Eric's Angle, the podcast for Iowa State mathematics students. I am your host, Eric Weber, chair of the mathematics department. Today's guest is a recent graduate of our program, having just completed his degree in December. He's also noteworthy for being a member of the Iowa State Cyclone Football team. His name is Kai Black, and he has an interesting story about pursuing his effort in football and becoming a mathematics major while at Iowa State, and also sharing that he's an avid golfer. So please welcome Kai Black. Hello, Kai. Welcome to Eric's Angle. Thanks for being here.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So start off by telling us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I just graduated actually over the weekend with a degree in applied math from here at Iowa State.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. It was a whirlwind. It actually went really fast. I couldn't believe it, but I'm from Urbandale, Iowa originally, down in Des Moines, not too far from here. Got recruited to play football here, originally for wide receiver, and then I switched to tight end after a couple years here. Throughout my journey, I declared math, I think a year and a half ago in the spring. And from there, I've changed to applied math and declared a biology minor and kind of had some academic landmarks along the way, but really have just developed kind of as a football player here and then on the academic side up until this graduation recently.
So you just graduated, but you have 2 more years of eligibility, is that
Correct.
right?
Yep, that's correct.
So you're going to continue taking classes and so forth?
Yep. So you're required to take full-time classes. There's some stipulations that are a bit different if you're a graduate student, but you are required to do school as an athlete even though you graduate. So I'll be taking full advantage of that. Still challenging myself in the classroom as best I can.
So I'm trying to do the math here in real time. So you've been here for 2.5 years? 2.5 years on campus?
Technically 3
years.
6 semesters. I started in the spring semester of 2023. So that would make it an even 6.
So you breezed through our bachelor's degree very quickly.
Yeah, I had some transfer credits from high school that helped me out along the way.
That's great. That's a good way to do it. So what drew you to mathematics? So you said you declared maybe just a year and a half ago. So what was the appeal to mathematics?
Yeah, it was very recent, and I didn't expect to be able to do what I did in the time that I did it after declaring so late. But out of high school, I had an interest in math. I really liked it. I felt like I was good at it. And, it's one of those things that people kind of go into, or not necessarily, but sometimes people choose engineering because they really like math or they think they're really good at math. And at one point that was me. When I got here, I thought I wanted to be a doctor. And so biology was on my radar. And when I got here in the spring of 23, it was taking high level or the highest level science and math courses that I could. I was enrolled in the calc classes. I was enrolled in the chemistry labs and the biology, and I really was undeclared, so I didn't have to take any of it technically. But I wanted to challenge myself, and I've always been someone that academically wants to strive for the highest and hardest things that I could do. So it started there, and then I think it kind of culminated to something greater as I saw the credits kind of roll in, and I started doing well in the math classes. And it really came down to this conversation I had with my dad, who, at one point I had to declare something credit-wise, and it was between biology and math. And he's like, a lot of CEOs have math degrees, is what he told me very bluntly. I'm like, all right, well, I'll try the math thing. Yeah, I'll try the math thing, and if nothing else, I'll get the minor in biology, which I ended up doing as well.
Well, I'm really happy to hear that you wanted to challenge yourself, and I'm also really happy to hear that you found mathematics sufficiently challenging.
Absolutely.
And I'm also happy to hear that your dad gave you some wise advice about pursuing mathematics, because what he said about the CEOs is actually true. I like to tell people that the CEOs of two of the biggest financial firms in Des Moines, so one is EMC Insurance, and the CEO is actually a graduate of our program.
Wow.
Graduated with a mathematics bachelor's degree in the 90s. And then the CEO of Principal Financial, not a graduate of Iowa State, but the CEO has a double degree in economics and mathematics. So, wow. Yes. It's not just a rumor. It actually is a thing.
Yeah, well, I should hope so. I spent a lot of time on it.
Yeah. So you and I were also talking about how mathematics can be a really good preparation for med school. So did that factor into your calculation, to use a pun, at all as you were thinking about your long-term plans?
Yeah, I think, honestly, no. Going into it, when med school was kind of an afterthought, there were times, and there were a couple of semesters here that I spent not knowing what I wanted to do after college. Being a doctor had always been something that's been in my radar and something that I was interested in, I thought inspired to do, but it didn't become a reality until I would say the beginning of, or I would say the end of last fall. So about a year ago. And that's when I kind of delved in and decided that I wanted to do it and kind of adjusted my credits around. So at the time, math was not factored, or my choice to do math was not influenced by my want to, or my desire to go to med school. But I think it just so happened that it's going to be a great tool for me to use as I try to go on and study for this MCAT and absorb a lot as I go on to take more chemistry and organic chemistry and physics. I think it's gonna play in really well and give me hopefully an advantage when it comes to testing and it comes to the application process and how they think of me personally. I know there's so many different factors that go into how you can be successful when applying for med school, and I'm hoping that with a decent GPA and they see math on the on the transcript that they'll be impressed enough to give me a shot.
Oh, I suspect they will. So I know that the MCAT is, I've never taken the MCAT, but I know it's a big ordeal to prepare for it and write it and do well. But I suspect that you are going to do well. You're going to do well on the MCAT, and you're going to do well when you apply for admission to med schools. So
I appreciate that.
We'll keep tabs on you as you progress through this
Absolutely.
process. So you mentioned you're going to continue taking classes, and that's mostly to help you prepare for med school, I suppose. When you said that you were pursuing math because you enjoyed it and found a challenge, did any other career opportunities come to your mind as you were enjoying your mathematics classes?
Yeah, that's a great question. And there was a point, kind of in that lull where I felt like med school might not have been an option, or I wasn't thinking about it. I did consider engineering, switching over to that because I had taken, all of the upper level calc classes, and done really well. And I thought maybe that's somewhere where I could get something out of doing math for a living. And, that became a brief thought, but to be honest, I was so deterred by, getting into the engineering coursework where there's a lot of prereqs and there's a lot of engineering specific courses where my credits wouldn't transfer over. So I'd probably be adding several years onto my graduation plan at that point. So that's what deterred me from doing engineering. I thought that was on the table at one point, but outside of that, I wouldn't say that there's been a lot of career paths that have interested me along the way. I mean, I've wanted to be a doctor since I was in 8th grade. I thought it's been the coolest thing ever, and luckily I've met some unbelievable people along the way through athletics mostly, and people who have taken care of me, people I've seen taking care of other people. I mean, I could point to at least 2 people in my life that are have major influence on my decision to want to go to med school and continue to have that influence on me to this day. So I feel like since the beginning, it's kind of been, doctor through and through.
Well, that's great. I'm not trying to convince you of changing your career plans, but I was just curious if anything had come to mind. Because one of the things that I am trying to do with this podcast and talking to as many people as I can is to expand the career opportunities for our math majors. Like, a lot of times our students, they recognize that they don't necessarily want to teach high school math. I didn't want to teach high school math, for example, when I was a math major. People talk about actuarial science as an opportunity. And then there's very few other obvious choices for what one does with a mathematics degree, even though there are lots of opportunities. So that's why I asked, is if it had ever, any of those thoughts had come to your mind.
Right. And if I could interject, I would agree with that. It does feel like you're kind of in a box when you start out. And as I've gone on and I've talked to a lot of people, and, I've got 119 teammates who have all asked me what my major is, and I've all had to tell them math. And they always ask, do you want to be a math teacher? And I'm like, no, I don't think so. Hopefully down the line, when I have a successful career as a doctor or something like that, I can come back and I'd like to be a substitute math teacher somewhere. I think that would be fun and enriching, but that's not the end goal. And for a lot of people, I don't think it's the end goal, but they have a passion and a love for math that, can't be contained by just taking an additional class or doing something like that. So I do think it's a super enriching degree, and I do think there's a lot of opportunities out there for people that don't want to be a math teacher. And I hope that, like you said, that this gives a platform for people that, that are in that situation and feel like they can broaden out. I don't think that's true. I think there's a great opportunity that you put yourself in with the math degree. So,
well, apparently you can become a CEO of a major company.
You heard it first.
So what was it like navigating your studies with the demands of being on a high-profile athletic team like the football team?
Right. It's tough. And I've been thinking about this question because it is loaded. There's a lot of components that go into it. To sum it up very simply, I think balance is the key. And there's been a lot of times, especially this semester, this semester was probably one of my hardest. I was taking a super tough proof-based course. Shout out to Professor McNichol and Analysis 1.
Yeah.
And it took, probably the most time that I've ever spent on a course to do well, and I did well. But the expectation that I have for myself, I mean, there's a lot of things that go into it, right? There's pressure from the coaches to do well in school, to get your things done, to not lag behind. There's pressure from myself and from future med school admission counselors who would expect me to have a, resounding GPA along with a lot of extra credentials. And then there's, that innate passion of mine to do well in school and to have hopefully straight A's at some point and to do well there. So I think, one, you have to deal with the mental health aspect of it. You have to keep yourself refreshed. You have to use one as an outlet for the other at times. And I think when you use those kind of interchangeably, like say I have a hard day at practice, well, okay, let me take my mind off of the practice by going and studying math. It sounds like kind of a vicious cycle, but I think it does refresh you at a time. And for someone that enjoys competition and enjoys being challenged, I think it's the greatest challenge that I could have underwent in college, and I'm super thankful for the opportunity to be able to do that, especially here at Iowa State where we've got a great math department.
Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the other aspect of it is time management. You have to be really smart with your time. I'll be honest, I'm a very boring person. I don't do a lot on weekends. If it's not in season, then I'm at home, or I'm at my girlfriend's house doing something, and most of that is studying as well. You got to spend a lot of time at your craft, and if I'm doing the extra in football, then I'm certainly doing the extra in the classroom to be successful. So it takes up a lot of your time, and for most people that's a deterrent, but for me, I think it's one of the things that allow me to be great at both of the things that I do at a high level.
So I usually ask my guests what advice they'd like to give our students. I think you've just given a plethora of advice for our students, so I appreciate that. Any concluding thoughts that you'd like to share with our audience?
I would just say, go for it. If you're thinking about doing math, absolutely do it. It's super hard and it's super fun. There's not maybe one, but I would say less than 2 math classes that I regret taking here. It's an unbelievable experience, and I think it's super enriching both for you right now as a student and going forward as a professional.
Thanks. I appreciate that. So Kai, it's been wonderful having you on Eric's Angle. Thanks again for being here.
Yep. Thank you so much.